This is Geek Gab with your host, Dorrinal, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back, Geek Gab, for Monday, January 13th, 2025. We want to welcome everybody to this second show of the brand new year. We're so excited it's 2025. Fully a quarter of the new century is behind us. I know there's going to be people who get all real persnickety about the year 2000 and say, no. That's actually the end of the last millennium. The new millennium didn't start until 2001, so the new century didn't start until 2000. Piffle! If it's got the year 2000 on it, it's part of the 2000s. That's what I say. And I will let nudniks and pedantics argue the rest. Therefore, this is part of the next quarter. The next quarter, the middle quarter of 2000s. And so 25 years have already passed, and we are now into the next 25. So exciting. Still no jetpacks, still no flying cars. Still no dragons flying above volcanoes and Native American nations setting up their own countries for the Shadowrun future. Very disappointed about that.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be some sort of, earthbound climactic vengeance coming upon us. At least that's what all the disaster movies taught me. And we're getting none of it. We do get the dystopian cyberpunk future, though. It's
Without
just
the cyberware.
It's a lot less exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, the cyberpunk dystopia arrived, and it's so much more lame than we were promised. We got the pathetic, paste-eating kid in school cyberpunk future. It's like we were promised the Billy Idol cyberpunk future where things were tough and awesome and rock and roll. And instead we got the slow bus, the short bus, slow kid cyberpunk future. It's just lame. I mean, it's not like the oppressor elite aren't doing evil things. They're just doing it in a stupid and pathetic way. It's sad. We have to, our evil elites are like finger painting evil elites, right? They're like, they sit there and they're not finger painting with paints, they're finger painting with pudding because they lick their fingers so much that they'd get killed if we gave them real paints. And they are evil and oppressive, don't get me wrong, but they're so sad. They're so pathetic. Just wonder how they managed to successfully oppress us so badly for so long. You look around at people being oppressed and you're like, guys, you don't have to put up with this. You can stop at any time. Oh. It's like we're being oppressed by the guys from Dumb and Dumber.
Wow, that's taking it to another level.
Yeah, and it's not like people.
Bradford Walker wants the Shadowrun future too. Me too. Hey, Simon Hogwood, good to see you. Good morning. Hope everybody's enjoying their first quarter century.
So, but anyways, and I think the part of it is the fact that just large groups of people have bought into their dumbness and are aiding and abetting them. That's why it's working. It's not just the dumb people in charge, but there are hordes of other dumb people aiding and abetting them. And that's why they get away with it.
Oh, we've known about them for years, the useful idiots.
Yeah. So, but I have something I want to get out of. I want to get this out of the way early on because it kind of frosted me earlier today to see this. Um, I guess he's one of the primary designers of Pathfinder. His name is Jason Bullman or Buellman. Said this last year. It just came across to me. Talking about J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect who will be taking office in just a few days.
Okay.
If Vance has played Pathfinder, I want him to send his books back. No space for fascists in our game. I could go off on a big long rant here, but I said very few words on Twitter, and those few words will suffice. So I just want to say those few words, and that'll be my entire commentary on the subject. This attitude is the biggest problem in America today. People casting others out of society over politics. They seek to take away rights to free speech, their jobs, bank accounts, and even academic and artistic accomplishments. When successful, they hound people to suicide. So that's it. That's my comment. This idea that we can and should cast people out of society for politics is the biggest problem in American society today. And I think it's evil, and I think it's wrong. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I can say that as someone who's been unpersoned and lost friends and opportunities from that, there's a part of me that agrees. And there's a part of me that wants I don't want vengeance, but there's a lot of bad actors in there, and they are willingly performing those evil. And in an ironic twist, I think we'd be better off if they were all excised from polite society because, in my opinion, they've given up the right.
I think we would be best off if they repented and changed their minds and decided to become healthy participants in society once again. And some of them have. Graham Linehan has seen what he did in the past in unpersoning people, in engaging in council culture, because it happened to him over a political dispute. And so he issued an apology to people who he had done that to in the past. So I think that would be best for everyone if we could reform civil society again. And I am willing to welcome those people. And I had a cancel culture mob after me for several weeks. The really big in public cancel culture mob. But I think that would be best, and those people who are willing to repent and turn from their pasts, I think that's great. I think obviously the worst thing is for this kind of attitude to spread. um, and I would hate to see that. So
I tend to agree. What needs to happen is that more people need to, express what you've expressed, that the idea that you can just announce on social media, oh, so and so is not welcome in my space because of personal views or that sort of thing. That sort of grandstanding, showboating, and virtue signaling, that needs to become more low class. It needs to become, for lack of a better word, cringe.
yeah,
The more cringe that gets, the more people are going to come around and realize, yeah, that's not healthy. That's not how we want to live. And I suspect that for people who don't spend a lot of time online, that's the way it is. So we can only hope it gets better.
yeah. Okay, but you had some exciting news. Moving on.
Yeah. I mean, exciting's a strong word for it, but um, that cult classic space opera, Babylon 5, great show from the 90s, uh, with extremely dated computer graphics. Uh, it's been offline for a while. You've had to pirate it or have to have owned DVDs. And I was in the middle of watching the series last time the rights got dropped, but it's back
No, no,
on.
no. It's always been available. It's just been available on different streaming services.
Oh, has it?
Yes, you just
I got
had
the
to
word.
have had a subscription to the right streaming service. So if you didn't have a subscription to the right streaming service, it's been unavailable to you.
I see. Well, it's definitely been off my radar for a couple of years. I'm diving back into it. Um, and I'm back. I started from the beginning. I'm back in the first season. If you guys haven't seen it, if somehow you're listening to the Geek Gab and you've never seen Babylon 5, I mean, check it out. The to not to echo too much our conversation we just had, but yeah, there's some filler episodes. The writer's kind of a shit lib, but um, the story's so cool. There's this is a plotted out story told over 5 seasons. So there's a lot of filler, but this isn't like Star Trek where where it's very episodic, and it's not like a newer series like Lost or or one of those shows that's where the writers are obviously just making stuff up each week. There's hints and foreshadowing and secrets. Characters keep secrets from each other that are going to get paid off in the future. On top of that, I want to say the cast is like 50-50. Half the cast have some pretty painful, cringy uh, line readings, but the other half are amazing. And it just so happens that the most important characters, the best characters, are played by those actors. Um, in particular, uh, the alien ambassadors Jakar and Londo um, Malari, outstanding characters, and they're given characters that are prone to boasting and grandstanding and flowery language, and so the actors just go full ham every time they're on screen. Really enjoyable to watch, and it is enjoyable to sort of sit through the intrigue. What are all the characters up to, and there's vast conspiracies that span the galaxy. Uh, yeah, and there's turmoil on Earth over the fate of humanity. It's cool. It's cool, and yeah, Brad. Like half the cast is already dead. Um, it seems like half of them just passed away in their 60s. And so rest in peace. I don't think we'll ever see great actors like them again. But it's a good show. It's really good stuff. J. Michael Straczynski created it. Really good stuff. I think now I haven't watched them all. In fact, I was just I was just remarking about this the other day. Warpig, did you know that I have not really been one of those guys that watches all the space shows? Do I strike you as someone who's seen lots of Star Trek and Farscape and Stargate and all these things?
I'm actually one of those guys who doesn't watch all the space shows.
Strange, right? It seems like the sort of thing that would be right up our alley. Uh,
Yeah,
but it's not, and I'll tell you, it's the best I've seen. I when I was young, I enjoyed Star Trek: The Next Generation. When I was a little bit older, I really liked Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, which on the surface is a copy of Babylon 5. Um, but every time I go back and see Babylon 5, um, it really impresses me. Do you know what doesn't or hasn't aged well? Speaking of uh, space shows, you're not going to be surprised, but I don't know that you'll guess.
the reboot of Battlestar Galactica.
Oh my. I'm not going to subject myself to that. That that was one of those mystery box shows where the writers clearly had no idea what was going on. Um,
Is that the one you were going to say?
no, I was going to say
Oh,
Firefly.
oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, Firefly. I let's just say that Joss Whedon dialogue can stay in the aughts, in the first part of the 20th century or 21st century. I'm good. Um, and the characters, it's particularly grating that the space prostitute is the moral center of the show, and everything else in there. Um, as fun as the characters are, it's actually fun to sort of have that sort of space western themed show. But um, I've tried, I tried rewatching Firefly, and I stopped after 2 episodes. I'm good.
I haven't watched it in a while, but uh, and in a while, I mean, in probably over a decade. I've just been too busy or too sick to watch it, so I cannot comment on whether or not it's held up well.
Um, Speaking of westerns, I got a game review for you.
Okay,
I learned a new game. One of my friends picked it up over the holiday called Flip Town, and it's a cute little game. Have you ever heard of a roll and write or a flip and write game?
no,
So a roll and write is where you have like a character sheet or a notebook paper or something, and you roll some dice and you write down the result. One of the basic one of the most basic versions is Yahtzee, if you've ever played Yahtzee.
yes,
Um, so Fliptown, and I'm going to show a picture here for anybody watching on YouTube. I'm going to show a picture of the game. Is a game where instead of dice or anything like that, it uses a deck of poker cards, and it's got a Wild West theme, so the poker deck is really thematic. And it's played with a few of your friends over a number of rounds, and each turn you flip the top 3 cards of the deck, and the 3 cards of the deck are used by everybody to determine what they can do, like what actions they can take on their turn. And each part of this little board here has a different action. Spades go to one page, diamonds go to another, hearts go to walking the trail, clubs go to all the different buildings in the town, like the church and the sheriff's office and what have you. And the goal is to get more points than everybody else. And you get points by going to these places and like robbing stagecoaches or mining in the mines for gold or paying money in town, that sort of thing. And so it's got a cute little theme to it. It's fun to play. And one of the cool things about it is um, everybody plays off the same 3 cards each turn. So it's cool once the players start diverging sort of what they want to do, and you sort of look around the table and see what everybody's doing and how it's going. for everybody based on all the divergent paths that you take. So I recommend it. Fun little game, easy to learn, real easy to play. You just sort of, flip the cards, you mark off the stuff that you get, and then with these little, markers, they're just like dry erase markers on this board, um, and that's it. I recommend it. It's cool.
So even though everybody has the same cards, they can do multiple things with those cards, and the way you win is by choosing uh, the optimal action to use your card on.
That's right. And so for the 3 cards, you reserve 1 card that just goes into like a poker hand, and you use the other 2 cards to determine which action you're going to take. So people are going to try to keep different cards because they're going to hope for a good hand like a straight flush or a full house or something like that. But if you do that, that limits you to what you're going to do with your other action uh, on the board. Like I said, each suit has a different type of action, and so yeah, you're going to try to make the optimal play. And then the first couple of turns, you don't know what the optimal play is, right? Because you only have 1 or 2 cards in your poker hand, and it's early in the game, so sort of all your options are available to you, and you don't know exactly what 3 cards are coming up next. And then as you get to the end of the round, like the 5th round and the 10th round and the 15th round, when you fill up your poker hands, then it becomes a optimization problem where you say, okay, these are my 3 spaces that I can go to. How do I squeeze the most points out of this? Um, did that make sense?
Yeah, and you really, really hope that those early turns that you kind of made blind, you actually made good choices.
Yes, yes. And there's a little bit of fudging. You can discard gold, which is valuable for points and for paying off the sheriff. But you can discard gold as well to change the ranks or the suits of some of these cards. So you can sort of, and that makes the divergence even greater because once people have a little stockpile of gold, players can, um, they're going to take actions that barely resemble those 3 cards if they need to, which in turn
Okay.
makes the optimization game near the end of each round even more interesting because you've got, a dozen more options.
All
So
right.
it's a cute little game. I think it was about, I don't know, 45 minutes to play with 4 of us. It's a good one. I'd definitely keep it around as a one of those faster games.
Like a fast party game.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds actually, I'm actually really interested.
Good.
Sounds like something I'd like to play. So,
My job here is done.
um, completely shocking entertainment news, real quick. There's this guy named Robbie Williams, and he's the lead singer of a boy band called Take That back in the 90s. And back in the 90s, this boy band was literally like one of the biggest things ever in Britain, almost as big as the Beatles in Britain. But nobody in America has heard of him at all. So they made a musical biopic about him, like Walk the Line and the musical biopic about Freddie Mercury and all that stuff. But instead of having humans play him over the course of his life, they had a CGI monkey play Robbie Williams.
Wait, that's a true story? That's a biopic?
That's a biopic.
All right, but let me anticipate the punchline here. I mean, because I saw a trailer for this, and I and me and my wife were like, "Who? What is this movie about? Who is going to watch this? Who is the audience for what appeared to be a generic Star is Born kind of biopic with an animated monkey instead of a person?" But go on. Tell me how the story ends.
So, shockingly enough, this biopic has just opened in America. A biopic about a British superstar known as heard of in America that stars a CGI chimpanzee. Opened in America. Paramount bought this picture to distribute in America for $25 million. And on its first weekend, would you like to guess how much money it earned?
$3,000.
It actually earned $585,000.
That's a disaster.
Shockingly enough, coming strong out of the gate. And I'm like, what the heck? It makes me kind of interested in going back and listening to some Take That music just to see if it was any good. Because I like a couple of NSYNC songs. I like a couple of whatever that other band who. Okay, I like literally one of that other band who was next to NSYNC, whose name I can't remember.
Which one was it? Was it the Backdoor Boys?
Yes, Backstreet's Back. All right. Okay. Yeah, Backstreet's Back is a good song. I haven't heard anything else of theirs that I can remember. But I like a few NSYNC songs, like three, literally three NSYNC songs and one Backstreet song. Five, there's a band from Britain called Five, and they have one good song that I like. You know, my iTunes has something like 20,000 songs, and I've got five boy band songs on there from the 90s. So, yeah, I'm cool.
You sure are.
Oh, you know what's sad? You know, the Olympics came to Utah, right?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. And everybody got tickets to all these Olympic things. And the only Olympic event I got to see in Utah wasn't ice dancing, it wasn't hockey, it wasn't the luge. Literally the only Olympic event I got to go see was NSYNC. I couldn't get tickets to see anything else,
Oh, that stinks.
but I got to see NSYNC live in concert at the Olympics.
Wow.
Oh, so I've managed to add. I think there's five bands I've seen live in concert now, not counting like local bars and stuff. I've seen the Jets, who are a 1980s band. They were like Samoan or something. They were good. Queensryche, the progressive metal band. NSYNC, the Indigo Girls, and Typo Negative because they were opening for Queensryche.
Oh, that's cool. I think I would have liked to have seen Typo back in the day.
And I think that's it. Yeah. I've had a very widely varied live concert sort of experience. I never did get to see any of the 90s, typical 90s experience, like going to the Warped Tour or anything, because I've been poor during all the 90s and 00s, and 2010. No, I saw Weird Al Yankovic. I saw Weird Al Yankovic in concert. That was my favorite.
That does legit make you cool, though.
So apparently he's also coming through Utah again, and there are ticket scalpers selling tickets in like 3 months. There's ticket scalpers selling tickets for $150. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Absolutely not doing that. I'd love to see Weird Al again because this is like his last concert tour, but not for $150.
Same.
But I saw him once in concert, and I am perfectly happy with that. It was spectacular.
Yeah, Weird Al does a really good show.
All right. Let's talk about Amazon, the beast. I've been listening to some audiobooks recently because there are some video games that are really great that I enjoy playing, but which involve a lot of, let's call it terrain traversal, right? Where instead of Call of Duty, where you're stuffed into this sort of linear corridor and things happen to you all the time, or The Witcher, where you're covering territory, but every 5 steps something is jumping out at you, or if you're on a quest, there's like a lot of talking in Witcher quests, and that's not bad. You're always dealing with characters who have interesting things to say, and you really have to pay attention. Whereas in Fallout 4, there aren't a lot of characters with interesting things to say, and you kind of don't have to pay attention if you've played the game before. But a game like, Fallout 4, you can walk around for long periods of time without talking to anybody, and you don't really have to pay attention because there's long periods of terrain that you can just not meet anybody. And you don't have to pay attention to the sounds around you. Or the current game I'm playing, which is Death Stranding. It was a PlayStation exclusive, I think, in 2017, I believe. And got released on the Xbox 360 2 months ago, I think. And so I've been playing it because I was kind of nominally interested in it. And it has a lot of terrain traversal. And a lot of scavenging for things, and a lot of just doing a ton of quests to get specific settlers and settlements up to their maximum rating so you can get technology that actually makes the game noticeably. The game starts off very, very inconvenient and difficult, but if you do they're carry quests and fetch quests. There are a lot of carry quests, delivery quests, and fetch quests. But you're doing them through hostile terrain. And I don't. Did you ever play Death Stranding?
Not me. Nope.
You're going through terrain, and you have this rain. It's called Timefall, and it will degrade your equipment. So you have to replace your equipment, fairly frequently. And then hidden in this Timefall are these creatures called BTs, and you have to stealth around them because if you don't, they'll spawn these other guys to attack you. That if you can escape them, you're sort of fine. But if you can't escape them, you'll be caught in a boss battle. So you actually do, in those instances, have to pay attention to what's going on around you. But a lot of the time, you can just scout, or you can just, get around their territory. So during this terrain traversal, where you're walking and climbing up mountains and moving around until you can get enough supplies to rebuild the roads here and thus drive along the roads at high speeds, there's just a lot of empty space. And into this empty space, I'm left feeling really twitchy. So I've been watching episodes of TV that I can have playing um, and not necessarily watch all the time. You can't do that with movies because movies are really highly visually oriented and you have to watch them closely. Um, Unless they're like dramas where people are talking all the time, but like action movies and sci-fi movies and fantasy movies, especially horror movies, you have to watch them. You have to focus on them. You can't just have them playing. But TV shows, for the most part, you can have playing because a lot of things are happening in dialogue. A lot of things are happening in conversing. Comedy, you can't do that with as much because a lot of that is sight gags. A lot of that is expressions on the characters' faces, reaction. But for drama, you don't have to pay as much close attention. So I've been watching Charmed, which I've never seen before, and I've been working through the first season of that. Which, by the way, to give a quick review of not quite the first season of Charmed, is a really delightful show that really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. When it said it was a show about three sisters who were three witches, I kind of assumed it was going to be one of those hardcore feminist Wicca oriented movies, oriented shows like a lot of the movies and books about witches are. I just assumed it was going to be like a lot of the urban fantasy books I've read that are about witches. But I didn't take into account that this was made 20, 30 years ago, right? 25 years ago. And it was made by Aaron Spelling, who did like Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place and things like that. And it's just a sweet-hearted show about three sisters. And Buffy, even though it stars a main female character, is a very male-oriented show. It's very action-oriented. It's very, hardcore monster hunting and physical combat. And Charmed is a very female oriented show. It's oriented around sort of slice of life things. It's oriented around relationships and feelings, but it has enough supernatural threats, enough magic, and it's a very sweet show. The sisters are all struggling with relationships with each other because of things that happened in their childhood, and their mom died and their dad disappeared and their grandma raised them, and one of them took off and they're kind of upset about that. She went to New York and abandoned the family, and they haven't talked to each other in a long time. When they finally get back together at the beginning of the series because their grandma died, they find out they're these, charmed witches. And then all these supernatural threats come out of the woodwork because they want to take their witchly powers. But they're white witches and they can't use their powers to enrich themselves. They have to only use them to, in good ways on humans. They can use them to defend themselves or to, get rid of demons and evil warlocks and things like that. And so it's a very positive show. Um, it's about reconciling with their sisters, and uh, they have powers that mean they have to find these innocents and save them. Kind of like what was that AI show? Um, Person of Interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Person of Interest in that they have to find an innocent a lot of the times and figure out what to do to save them. And sometimes it's hard to tell who the innocent is, things like that. And so I thought it would be this grating feminist show. I completely prejudged it, and I was wrong. And it's entertaining. Um, I liked Buffy better when I first saw it, but this is an entertaining show, and uh, it's really harmless. Um, the supernatural powers as they're used in the show and things like that are not at all occult. They have nothing to do with real, witchcraft or Wicca or anything like that. They have no connection to actual witchcraft in quote unquote the real world. So, anyways, I was watching Charmed. If you're interested in show like that, I'd recommend it. If that sounds boring to you because of the relationship stuff, you can skip it and that's okay. I've been enjoying it. So I started listening to audio books, which I have been doing for a while now, while playing video games that don't have enough immediate action to hold my interest, which is where I've, developed that whole can't do it during Witcher, can do it during Fallout, whatever. And I listened to a lot of the John Ringo we had on a couple weeks ago. I listened to a lot of the books from his series, his zombie series. And I've listened to some Larry Correia shorts that he has that are Audible exclusives that are about this alien planet where people crash landed on it, colonists crash landed on it. And the peaks of these 5 mountains, they've had a settlement on it because if you go lower than that, the atmosphere is caustic and you die. So these are the only 5 inhabitable peaks on the whole planet. And then he's had 3 murder mysteries. The main character is a policeman, is a cop. And he's investigating murders in these 3 different murder cases, are the 3 different books, or 3 different short stories, really, that have been released. I've listened to, and I've also listened to, so those are what I call book reading, where you have a narrator who just reads the books. I've listened to a few of the Jason Onspach and Nick Cole Galaxy's Edge books. And I've listened to like one of the park books. Larry Niven and Jerry Pournell Dream Park books. I've listened to one of those. And someone expressed on Twitter that what they like are the reading books, where you have a narrator, maybe 2, who just reads the book and they record that. And sometimes they'll do different voices for different characters in different accents. But primarily, it's them reading the text of the book. And I have also listened to what they call full cast adaptations, or a company that's called Graphic Audio. Now, Graphic Audio, I believe, was active a while ago. What they do is they do what used to be called radio plays back in the 30s.
Oh,
where
okay.
you would have not just different people doing different cast members, but you would have sound effects and you would have, music to bring the whole thing to life, to help spark your imagination. And I've talked about one of these productions before, Impact Winter, the vampire one, where a comet impacted the planet and threw up snow and clouds to cover the suns so the vampires could come out and take over the world. And I gave a positive review to that. But I've listened to some other ones. There's a very, very popular female author right now who again writes very female-oriented books, in that in addition to all of the ostensible action going on. They're focused very heavily on relationships, on people falling in love but having to stay apart, on social status, on someone dying, on very heavy emotional weight, and not so much around combat and things like that. There's a lot of big, strong, heavy males and the female being attracted to them. The main character's female, but there's not a lot of focus on action. Whereas male-oriented books and TV shows and movies generally are focused heavily on action, with relationships being secondary. And you can tell that it's a female-oriented book or a female-written book when the big, strong, masculine alpha male goes to talk to the woman and has this sudden crisis of confidence because he thinks to himself, oh no, what if she sees me having hurt this person or killed this person? Will she not like me anymore? And I have to say this, I've seen this before in other female written works. That may be a female reaction. That may be the reaction of a less confident man. But there is no alpha male in the history of the world who has suddenly had a crisis of confidence because he has just gone out into the world, found an opponent, beat the ever-loving crap out of him, and overcome in a massive way. Because if you're an alpha male and you've just had a visceral, immediate, physical contest and won, you are flooded with testosterone. And your confidence increases by like 1,000%. And you are not less confident after that. You are more confident after that. You are on top of the world. You feel invulnerable, even if you're hurt. You do not feel like you are a loser. Now, any female authors listening, that is a feminine reaction. That is not a masculine reaction. So, I don't know. And more importantly, that is not an attractive reaction. That is not a reaction that women swoon over. Sudden feeling of lack of self-confidence is not something women find attractive. That's something women find disgusting.
That is repulsive.
Yes. So, anyways, you can tell it was written by a woman because of that. So this, I listened to the full graphic audio version of this book, the Sarah J. Maas book. And I have to say, on the balance, even though some people prefer just reading books, just having the narrator read the book at them, I much prefer the radio plays versus the readings. I enjoy the sound effects. I enjoy the music. I enjoy having different characters being read by different actors. It makes the book feel so much more alive. And I did not check before the show. but I believe this graphic audio company was started as a separate company and then has been bought out by Amazon. Or because its earlier works do not have the "this is Audible" pronouncement in front of it, but its more recent ones do. And it's another example, like Audible itself used to be an independent company. So did Comixology. And Comixology has gone severely downhill since Amazon wrapped it in its clutches. And instead of using the Comixology app, now I have to use the Kindle app, which is trash. All I can get from using the Kindle app is it's probably based on some crap cross-platform genericized framework, which does not multi-thread at all. Which means if it's downloading something or thinking of downloading something, or potentially considering that you might be downloading something in the near future or distant future, it becomes absolutely unresponsive to taps on the interface on your phone. And it doesn't just become unresponsive to them, it queues up all your taps and then goes through them all at once in inapplicable contexts, causing the program to do things you absolutely did not want it to do. It's trash. It's crap. It's poop. It's a gigantic poop nebula. If you had multi-threading on this stupid app, then not only would every download queue, and I know this is possible because other apps do it, downloading is unconscionably slow, and I know it's faster because other apps are faster. You could have the interface running in its own thread. And I'm on a multi-processor phone. I have like 8 processors available. It only downloads 3 books at the same time and no more. So I know there are whole processor cores available that it could have dedicated to each download. I have 2 gigabytes of RAM. And when it's the Forefront app, the entire phone is available for its use. Everything, all the resources are focused on this stinking app. So it can use 1 entire core for the GUI and 2 entire cores or 3 entire cores for downloading the program. And it can allow me to tap on the X to stop downloads, or allow me a preference to not automatically download books because I don't want to. But they don't do any of that because they're crap. Amazon is a monopoly. It's a monopoly in ebooks, and it's a monopoly in audiobooks. And they use this to harass you and bully you into buying what they want and into making things generally inconvenient to find what you want. And they also make it inconvenient to manage the data on your own devices. and it's obnoxious and it's hateful. And I don't know why they do it this way, but they do. So
That's awful.
Graphic Audio has done some phenomenal books to this point in full cast radio play versions. And I have heard some authors do good versions of books in reading versions. Then again, some adaptations in Graphic Audio have been terrible. Neverwhere, the Neil Gaiman book, has two versions, which is the reading version and the full cast version. And the full cast version just omits large portions of the book. Like all the internal monologue of the character is just cut out, which is like, 50%, 70% of how you understand the character are the things that go into his mind, and you don't get any of that. And I know from having read the book before, you're just not going to understand it. And so they take what is just reading the book is like 10 hours, but the full cast version is like 3 hours. So it's absolutely worthless. And I wish I'd known that before I spent money on that, or at least been wise enough about those kinds of books. So you really need to be careful. And every time I get on Audible to buy a book or to look at a book, I always look for unabridged. Because anything abridged means they've just cut out parts, and you never know what they cut out, but it's always going to alter the book, and that's never a good thing. So always go for unabridged, whatever it is. And if you happen across a book, no matter whether it's reading it or if it's full cast, if it says it's abridged, absolutely do not buy it. I do, however, prefer reading a book first over anything else. I prefer full cast over anything else. I prefer reading a book as in me personally reading the copy, reading the text over anything else. Full cast audiobook over anything else. Then a narrator over, whatever is below that. And then if I absolutely have to, and I can't get it any other way, because there are some books. There's one book series I went to check out, and it's used to be available in ebook. They yanked all the ebooks, so the only way it's available now is in either hardback or audiobook. There's no paperback available, no ebook available. Hardback or audiobook are your only choices. And that kind of aggravated me. And the hardbacks aren't cheap. They're like $15 a piece. And then below that is, abridged audiobook, if that's the only way you can get a copy. So, but graphic audio, I've listened to several different versions, several different books of theirs in different series. And one was the Post-Apocalyptic Deadlands series by James Axler. Or Deathlands, excuse me, from the 80s by James Axler, famously has 100 and something volumes in it. I didn't quite finish the first book, but it was fabulous. So the graphic audio company has until now seemed to have done an excellent job. And I've got a couple more of theirs queued up when I finish this Sarah Maas series. I hope they maintain the excellence. My point in ranting about Amazon's monopoly is that a monopoly gets lazy, and I'm afraid that by buying graphic audio, they might get lazy and stop making books that are as excellent as they have been up until now. They seem to have been quite excellent. So if you're looking for full cast series, graphic audio definitely has some really well done ones. And I imagine their company has been doing it for a while now. But I don't know that for sure. I don't know the history of the company. I doubt they just started with Deathlands like 5 years ago out of the blue for no reason. I think that was probably done during the 80s and 90s when Deathlands was a big deal. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're business after all. But that's cool. It's good. I love to hear your perspective on that. I've never been interested in audiobooks, so I think it's cool to even hear. I know we talked about it before, but it's cool to hear about the radio play style, because it's not something I would have noticed or sought out if you hadn't mentioned it.
I mean, I got into, I use that in a specific sense. When I was little, we went to Cincinnati and went to see the Air and Space Museum, but we also went to a radio museum that was in Cincinnati. And my parents bought me a couple of tapes, 3 or 4 tapes. One was a shadow show, one was Fibber McGee and Molly, one was Abbott and Costello. And so I really liked radio plays, even though I didn't listen to them extensively. And I bought a humble bundle that had a bunch of shadow radio plays on them. And by a bunch, I mean there's like 50 of them. And these are the ones that were done by Orson Welles and his company. So I haven't had a chance to listen to them because, again, like I keep on saying, I am fabulously, insanely busy. I'm working like 12 hours a day. And I very rarely take breaks. But I really do want to listen to those because the Shadow one was just incredible. And they called them old time radio plays. They were on cassettes. That's how old I am. And they were great. I think I even got the War of the Worlds broadcast, the infamous 1939 War of the Worlds broadcast. That was rumored by newspapers to have sent people in panic, but that was a hoax by newspapers. One of the early infamous examples of fake news in the country.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a hoax. Did not happen. So, in any case, I love those kinds of broadcasts. I think they're more imaginative. They're more evocative. I will say this. I am also reading physically through the last 5 books of the Amber series. And I saw that several of the books in the Amber series, there's 10 books in the Robert Zelazny Amber series. I saw that, about 4 or 5 of them were on sale for $1 a piece. And some of the others were on sale had much higher prices. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just pick those up right now. We're on sale. And I'd seen the narrator for the first 5 books. And the narrator for the first 5 of the Amber books was Alessandro Giuliani, who I had no idea who that is. So I was like, okay, 9 Princes of Amber, Sign of the Unicorn, Trumps of Doom, Prince of Chaos. They're all on sale. I'll buy them. No problem. And so I was reading Trumps of Doom. So I'm like, okay, let's just cue this up because it'll sync to the physical book where I'm reading. And I can just listen to this. And this is before I started the Sarah Moss book. And this is why I started the Sarah Moss book. And then I looked at the narrator. And it's narrated by Will Wheaton.
Oh.
And I'm like, I am not listening to 30 hours of Will Wheaton. This particular book is like 6 hours, but all 5 of them would be like 30 hours. I'm like, this should have a biological warfare warning sign. This should have like danger, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. I am not listening to 30 hours of Will Wheaton. I can't stand his voice. I can't stand him as a person. I bought 2 of these books. If you buy books with credits on Audible, you can sort of get a refund. If you buy them with money, you're SOL. So now I'm stuck with these 2 Will Wheaton books.
Man, that's hard. Is there any way to know ahead of time?
Yeah, I could have looked at it ahead of time and seen that it was narrated by Will Wheaton, but I just saw Alejandro or Alessandro.
Yeah, man, I want Alessandro to read my books.
And
Who wouldn't?
and then I didn't bother looking at the rest and broke my heart.
Dang, man.
Broke my dang heart. So, and I don't know why there was such a vast disparity in the prices between these, or why some of them had like whisper sync pricing and the others didn't, even though I own the books. It just, I don't know. Anyways, that's it. I listened to part of the first Suki Stackhouse novel. And that was pretty good too. That was really well done too.
Not familiar with that one. Suki Stackhouse.
Yeah, that's the one that's the one they based that HBO vampire series off of. With Rogue.
True Blood?
True Blood, yeah, that's the one they based True Blood off of, this series.
Okay.
I read Nick Cole. I've been listening to Nick Cole's Soda Pop Soldier, and that's a fabulous audiobook. It's not full cast, but it's an incredibly well done audiobook. Generally speaking, I've been very satisfied by the quality of audiobooks on Audible. I haven't gotten one that I would consider a disaster yet. City of Golden Shadow by Tad Williams has been excellent, just as the quality. The only problems, you won't find any problems that are problems with the audiobook that weren't originally problems with Tad Williams' writing. So, yeah, it's just, I have been, as a general rule, even though I am not an audiobook person, my time to sample and listen to these to spend time listening to these has been they've been enjoyable and entertaining, and I still prefer reading, but on the whole, these have been very very well done.
And what's the name of the company again that makes the really good
Graphic Audio?
Graphic Audio.
And you can tell them because when you look at the little square that's the picture cover, that's the quote unquote cover of the book. It has a specific name and icon on it. It says Graphic Audio, and then has like three lines bent around it that look like, it's meant to look like airwaves coming out of a speaker.
Cool.
But they have just done a phenomenal job with everyone I've heard. So I've been very impressed with them. I'm a fan now. They have earned my patronage so long as they continue putting out quality product. And I wish I had a rant here. I wish I could make it more exciting for the audience. Like, oh, this is terrible. This is ranting and raving. But even the book from a feminist point of view, from a female point of view, excuse me, not feminist, female point of view, I don't have a rant on. I mean, the Sarah Moss book was really annoying me for the first half of the novel, because all she does is spend time complaining about men and how awful alpha males are and how terrible they are. And you're like, geez, lady, get over it. And then you find out near the end of the novel that it's actually a personality quirk of this specific character because of some things that happened. And it's not the author making a polemic. It's not the author up on a soapbox. So that was kind of aggravating, but I may have been jumping to conclusions too early to ascribe it to political motivations. And I did the same thing with Charmed. I just assumed that it was a political, or that it was going to be a political thing, and it absolutely wasn't. And the last 10 years, I think, have trained me, because people have been so viciously, bitterly political. The last 10 years have trained me to look at everything in a political light, or to be wary of everything, because I'm just so tired of getting lectured to. And I am discovering that there are things outside of that. Yeah, I made that mistake with Thunder Road, Fury Road. I assumed that was going to be a political thing, and it wasn't. So I just need to maybe throttle back, or not maybe, I definitely need to throttle back and just stop assuming that things which, may be politically motivated, just stop assuming that they are. And I'm not trying to lecture people. I'm not trying to lecture you, the audience here. If that aggravates you and you don't want to read it or listen to it, that's fine. I'm not telling you you have to. I'm not telling you, to change your minds or anything. I'm just saying I have recently encountered at least two things that are not political when I assumed they would be. And now I'm gonna go in a different direction with my mind and calm down and just take things for what they are instead of assuming everything's political. I mean, that was a really good assumption for a while, but even Wicked, that the director and the actress was so adamant about being this big political thing, seems not to have actually come out as political as they thought it was, or thought it was going to be. And maybe that was an accident, but maybe I missed seeing a good movie in the theaters because I just listened to their statements and didn't go see it. So maybe I need to give Wicked a chance when I didn't before. I don't know. What I'm saying is maybe I need to mellow out just a bit. Huh?
Relax, Warpig. You don't have to turn everything into a rant.
That is true. So
it's fun though.
But yeah, in general, I found Audible to be really excellent. And maybe I've just been lucky. I have picked books that are excellent books to listen to. Obviously, if it's a terrible book, it's not going to get any better on Audible. But if it's a good book, it'll still, and it has as a poor narrator, that's going to ruin the experience. And there are poor narrators on Audible. Oh, yeah. if you see anything that says like this is a automatic AI reading, don't listen to it. Holy crap. I've seen those. I have seen those on Audible, and I tried to listen to them. Some of the books in the Plus catalog, if you're an Audible Plus member, you go in and look at some of those. They're like, oh yeah, that looks great, but they're not actually narrated by human beings. They're narrated by AI voices, and they are awful. They drove me right away. They're just, I have seen some of them being high rated, like as in popular, like people listen to them. And I do not know how people can listen to these. They are terrible. It is absolutely mind boggling to me. I am weeping at hearing some of these. I just listened to one and I absolutely refuse to listen to any more. So if you hear anything that says something like, and I wish I had one pulled up. I didn't even remember them until right now. But they say something like, this is narrated by AI something or other, an AI voice, and it's generally like indie books, cheap indie books that have been put up, that the people who put them up can't afford. They can't afford to hire a narrator to narrate their books. Which, if you're an indie person and you can't afford to hire a narrator, I really understand. I absolutely do. But it is, in a way, you are cheating the audience by putting up a cheap um, uh, subpar, crappy a cheap, subpar, crappy book. It's just not. I think you should have some pride in yourself, some pride in your work, and whatever. And maybe you're making sales, and I understand if you really need the money, but they just sound awful. And they just, I don't know. I hate to get down on people who are struggling to make it. I hate to get down on people who really who cannot afford the same quality that other people do. I'm not trying to insult you, and I'm not trying to um, I'm not trying to call you names or whatever, but it's just it really makes bad.
Anyone doing that's probably either they don't have any pride in their work or they're taking a shortcut in the short term. That's really gonna.
Yes.
They're not thinking long term. They've got a high time preference.
So, yeah, man, I immediately ran into these quickly, and now I can't find one to save my life. So, anyways, you will run into them, and they. I just started listening to one. It was so bad. It was like grating on my ears, and I was like, no, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I just can't listen to this anymore. It was really obnoxious. So that was the worst experience I've ever had on Audible. Was AI generated audiobooks. Just couldn't put up with it for more than a few minutes. And it's sad because it looked like a book I was, maybe kind of interested in reading, but that's it. Okay. It is time to go.
You ready to pack it in, D-dubs?
Yeah.
Well, it's been a great show. Thanks for chatting. Really interesting stuff from the inside of your brain. And I hope everybody listening later goes and checks out some of the stuff we've been talking about. And I'm done for the week, man.
Yeah, I'm done. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the comments. Okay, folks, we want to thank everyone who tuned in live. We want to thank everyone who will tune in later. This has been Geek Gab for Monday, January 18th, 2025. Be sure to click subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll be notified as to when we're going live. We're available on youtube.com/geekgab. We're available on the Google Play Store, on the iTunes Store, and on soundcloud.com. We just do a search for Geek Gab. You can subscribe to us on the device of your choice, listen to us on the web, or especially for this episode, you want to check out YouTube to see the Western game that Dorrinal was highlighting. We are signing out for today, but don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.